Player magazine. He's also written articles and lessons for Acoustic Guitar, Fretboard Journal. Incredible writer. Now these magazines are writing articles about him. He's an amazing and prolific singer and songwriter. He's got released at least a dozen of his own recordings of his original music, some with words, some without. Adam is also the tastiest, emphasize tastiest guitarist that I have the great pleasure of knowing. He's probably best known for his past work with Norah Jones. He played on her 2002 breakout Come Away With Me album and the next two albums as well. He wrote In the Morning and co-wrote Moonsong with her. He's also performed and recorded with Annie DeFranco, Wolfpack, Michelle Nadeggio Cello, Alan Toussaint, Roseanne Cash, Jamestown Revival, and Tracy Chapman. His work, remember that tune, Give Me One Reason, big, giant, monster tune, won Best Song at the 1997 Grammy Awards. That's his guitar work, seminal guitar work. Everybody had to learn those rhythm moves, that solo. Now, Adam also happens to be, in my opinion, one of the most accomplished and well-respected educators on the planet. As I mentioned, he's written tons of lessons and articles for guitar magazines. He's published books and DVDs. He teaches worldwide on Skype. He's got a very popular YouTube series he started way back in 2014 called Guitar Tips. Check it out. And we here at TrueFire have been privileged to collaborate on what's becoming a really full, vast library of courses. We've done 30 songwriter sideman licks you must know, rhythm makeover, take 5 lyrical soloing, 50 lowdown rhythms you must know, slow burn soloing, and the 2 we just shot this week that we'll be talking about today, trading solos, folk jazz, and take 5 pocket rhythm. Let's shout out to Adam. I always hate interrupting their guitar work, but I got to do it this time. Oh, Tommy, thanks. Tommy helps me fade down the track so I don't have to rudely interrupt you in the middle of a thing. How are you, man?
I'm good. How are you, Brad?
Good. I was just flashing on, we first met, when you were at Guitar Player magazine.
That's right.
And you were writing tons of lessons and articles. And then we came knocking on the magazine's door, as well as other magazines, and said, hey, how about we do, interactive audio? Everyone thought we were a little loony, but the writers and the artists thought it was a great idea. And we produced these audio versions. And so you'd write the article, right? And then record an audio version of it. And we put it up in a computer so people could fast forward, rewind, cradle the phone, I guess, on their show. Do you remember those days?
I do, yeah. You'd have to push the code in to hear the specific example.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. We did literally tens of millions of phone calls.
Wow.
It was just how do you work with an audio lesson with a phone cradled on your shoulder, But people dug it.
Apparently 10 million people did.
I know. It was crazy, man. So the other kind of, not funny thing, but thing that I remember is, so we were doing that notes on call stuff. And, you were always such an awesome player on all of those lessons, right? And then sort of, all of a sudden heard about the Norah Jones thing.
Yeah.
And then the Tracy Chapman thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, right? And so there's a story, just to tell the story of how you and Norah first got together. Just tell that story.
Sure. Well, I was living in New York City. This might have been 1999 or 2000, something like that. And a dear old friend of mine was playing a gig at a bar in the West Village, and I went to see him play. And I got there a little early, and I took a seat at the bar, and I was sitting next to this young lady. And when my friend came in, who was going to play the gig, he knew her. I didn't recognize her. She wasn't a famous person. She wasn't a musician that I was aware of. But we're just sitting there, and our friend, his name's Kenny, came up. He said, "Oh, you guys should meet. This is Adam Levy. He's a great guitar player. This is Nora Jones. I remember him saying she's double kick, double ass, meaning she's a kick-ass songwriter and a kick-ass musician.
Really?
And he just thought that like we should get together. It was her first day in New York City. She had driven her like early 70s big old Cadillac up from Texas and come to New York for the summer just to take a break. She was still in school. She was going to a school in Texas, university. And so I said, "Oh, cool." And so I literally wrote my number down on like a cocktail napkin or just a scrap of paper. And I said, "Hey, here's my number. If you want to play some music sometime, give me a call." And she did. That's how we met.
And you'd probably given your number on napkins like 1,000 times to
Oh,
1,000 people. It's just like what you did, right?
You could probably fill up her old Cadillac with all the cocktail napkins that I had written my number on. Yeah, it's what you did. It was like kind of before everybody was just, getting their phones out and jamming everything into their phones. This is just literally you give your number out to somebody and, you don't think about it too much. You don't think like, wow, in that moment, actually that's almost 20 years ago now. Like that moment, had I not gone out that day or
crazy, right?
Had I not been a little bit, it's not that bold to give your number out, but some people just don't do that much even.
Yeah.
And it's so important to reach out. Like the business we're in is a business of people.
Yeah. And wasn't your first gig together, she was a waitress or something back in the day. And I don't know, I read or someone told me the first gig was in the back of a gallery or something and the band made $50 or something like that.
Oh yeah. I mean barely was it was a space inside a car dealership. It was a Mercedes-Benz dealership on the west side that had a gallery space and somebody had rented it out for some kind of party. And so, people are drinking champagne from plastic cups and eating the vegetable tray with the ranch dip and all that. And we're just in the corner playing jazz standards, not, Come Away With Me or any of the original songs that she would go on to write, but just, stuff from the real books, tunes that any student of jazz would know. That's what we did.
That's incredible, man. And then, talk about, number one with a bullet. It was like incredible, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, from the inside, it happened a little more slowly, but by the time that any of us realized what was going on, it was already going on. There was no, one day we're playing a cocktail party, and then all of a sudden, she's signed, and we make this record, and then we go out on tour as an opening act. We had these great opportunities. We opened for the Indigo Girls. We opened for the Dave Matthews Band. We opened for Taj Mahal, which was a big deal to me. And then next thing I knew, we were the headliner.
Yeah. Well, for the outside world, myself included, I remember Jude Gold calling me because, all of a sudden a big star appears on the scene like that. And the music and the musicianship, behind Nora was incredible. And also it was groundbreaking for that period of time. And even today, which of course you contributed majorly to, but Jude Gold, who was then I guess he was still writing for Guitar Player.
That's
maybe
right.
he was I don't know. We're talking one day and he said, "That's awesome about, Adam and Nora." I said, "What?" And it's like all of a sudden the world kind of lit up at Adam. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
And so, you must have written your number on a lot of napkins because you wound up playing with all, Tracy Chapman and all the other people that I talked about.
Yeah.
And I think our focus together on the educational side is, you are really, like I said in the intro, the tastiest player.
Wow.
And, you hear that kind of all the time that, it's players like you that get the gig and keep the gig, not so much the guys that are blazing away and pyrotechnics. And not that I'm not putting that down.
No, I like that stuff too.
Okay. So let's talk about, well, the first project we did together was Slow Burn Soloing.
Right.
We did that in Nashville. You remember at, what was that, SRI
Yeah,
Studios or
at
something?
SIR, yeah.
And then what was the other one we did back then? We did two in our first.
50 Low Down Rhythms, I think was part of that Nashville trip.
Yeah. So 50 Lowdown Rhythms and Slow Burn Soloing were both, like rhythm work and soloing, very, very tasty stuff. And, plenty of, vocabulary for basically whatever style of music you're playing. You covered a lot of ground there. And then we went on and did, I love Take 5 lyrical soloing.
Yeah.
Where, talk about that from your perspective.
Yeah. So I wanted to do a course in the Take 5 format. And just talk about different approaches that I use to play a solo, to craft a solo, which for me almost never comes from scales. Like, which when you're first starting out, it seems like all you need is this like spreadsheet of this chord, this scale, boom, I got all the answers.
Right.
Let's go. And in my experience, that's just not how making music has been. So I talked about thinking about lyrics as a way to drive your playing, using chord tones, just thinking about just some technical things, but also just some kind of like mindset stuff that gets me in the right headspace to play a solo that has some staying power to it, rather than just here's my greatest hits of all the minor key licks that I know kind of strung together. I think of a solo like George Harrison's solo on Something as a real great example of that. If you look at it, it flows. There's themes that come and go. If you've heard it one time, you can remember at least a few pieces of it. So that's been my kind of idea of how to be a soloist on the guitar. So when I did the Take 5 lyrical soloing, I was thinking, how could I teach the stuff that makes that work? Yeah.
Well, you did an incredible job. What struck me about that course, and it was definitely an epiphany for me and many of the other guitar players here, which all of us would love to blaze across the fretboard, okay? But it's the lyrical solos, those melodic solos, the ones that kind of mimic somebody singing. That's what the listener remembers. And that's what makes or breaks the song. And so it was really kind of your advice there about, repetition, staying within an octave maybe for a big part of it. And George Harrison, I think that's a great example of somebody that would play lyrically, and you could, you're in the car, you can sing right along with his solos.
Absolutely.
As other people as well. I mean, Larry Carlton's very lyrical soloist.
Totally.
He can burn too, but he always starts off in a really lyrical way, I love that. Then you did the Sideman lick. So we're now, what's kind of cool about our relationship is as we're now starting to embrace the singer-songwriter thing. So whose door did we knock on? The singer-songwriter guy that we respect a great deal. What's crazy about you is whenever I talk to you, you've got like 3 projects going on. All these people calling you, let's co-write this song. Could you record this album?
Yeah.
I mean, and it's that stuff that you and I have been focusing on here at TrueFire to help other aspiring, either singer-songwriters, right, or guitarists that accompany a singer,
right?
All of which, even if you don't do either of the above, it's the craft of crafting a killer, memorable solo or rhythm part.
Yeah.
And I think it's all groundbreaking stuff. Let's talk about and start playing now, okay? a couple of the new projects. So the first one we did was Trading Solos, right? And it's Trading Solos folk jazz. Okay, so the first
Yeah.
question is, what is folk jazz?
What is folk jazz? That's a good question. Well, what I've been finding as a player and even more so as a teacher is that people that come to me for jazz lessons these days, they don't, when I was growing up, the jazz icons were people like Joe Pass, and then a little later, people like John Scofield and Bill Frisell. And where people are at today, they're influenced, the jazz has become, there's a lot of kind of little threads that lead to and from jazz. And so people today are less thinking about the pure form, but it's more like, where does jazz sit in, it's part of Americana. If you think about, what American music is, what's more American than jazz and blues, right?
Right.
And then country music is part of that, and then the folk tradition. So we're at a time when, and it may be just as simple as the fact that when I was younger, there were record stores, and when you'd go to a record store, it really reinforced jazz is over here, rock is over here, blues is over here. Don't leave your blues record in the jazz bin or the rock bin, like.
Right.
And I think I never thought of it before, but it may be just part of where we're at today. Why people are a little bit more open-minded is that you don't have that sense of it that we would get anytime we'd go to a record store. And if you think about it, it just makes total sense. If you're somebody like Bill Frisell, his age, or John Scofield's age, you saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. You remember when Dylan went electric at Newport. So even though you might have a career in jazz, the real touchstone moments that shape what you're doing as an artist come a little bit more from outside. Now, I'm a little younger than that. I didn't see the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, and Dylan went electric before I was born. But, I remember the moon landing. And
Yeah.
anyway, so to me, all of that stuff is tied together. So jazz doesn't have to be chords with complicated names. It doesn't have to be odd time signatures. It's an American music. It has at its core blues and folk. And if you look at, Scofield made a record called Country for Old Men, where he recorded country songs. A lot of Frisell's music these days is just a few chords. Julian Lodge, who's a really sophisticated player, on his record Arclight, recorded a lot of tunes that are, harmonically simple and rhythmically simple, even though he has demonstrated on other records that he can do lots of other things. So, and although I live in LA now, when I was living in New York, I saw players that you might think of as jazz players jamming with and recording with people from other interests. It's just the whole idea that all of these groups of artistic-minded people should stay away from each other just doesn't make sense anymore. So maybe it never made sense, but it certainly doesn't make sense today in 2019.
No. And when you suggested this as the topic for this course, it's such a fresh and topical kind of theme that any guitar player, we hear it all the time. How do I jazz up my blues? How do I jazz up my rock? You hear singer-songwriters using what we call jazzy chords, but there's something happening here. And we love this title, folk jazz. So it's Trading Solos.
It's Trading
Let's
Solos.
give folks a taste of that. Can you do the, what is that track? Night something?
Night music, yeah.
What is it? Night music, Tommy?
Night music.
Do
yeah.
me Oh, do me. Yeah, do me and all of the people that are chimed in or will watch this later a solid and play a little bit of rhythm over the track and then let's solo over it. Cool?
Okay. Should
All
I
right.
just go from one to the other, or do you want to stop?
No,
in between?
pause in between because
Okay.
maybe we'll show people a thing or two.
Okay.
But Tommy, if you could roll, and by the way, Adam brought in killer rhythm tracks. You recorded live with a couple of your buddies
In
out
Los
there.
Angeles, yeah.
Just killer.
Oh, nice.
Roll that rhythm track if you would, Tommy, and give us some folk jazz. Sweet.
Thanks.
Folk jazz.
It is to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how else to describe that, but it's very, I don't know, very current, contemporary
Yeah.
sound. It would be great in any setting, instrumental,
Yeah.
or, you could hear vocals over that very easily.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? So now we're going to run, in trading solos, basically you're taking 10 tracks, then you comp over each of the tracks. We film that. And then we roll back the track with your comping over it, and then you solo.
Yeah.
Okay. I think since we really haven't finished the shoot yet,
Yeah.
Tommy, we don't have the comping track, but we can roll the rhythm track again. And if you would solo over it a
Sure,
little bit,
absolutely.
that'd be great.
Sure.
One more time, trading solos, folk jazz. That's very cool. What's really cool about that is, you don't need the chords under it. You can hear in Adam's, one of his very tasty, incredible skills, you can hear the chords when he's soloing. You don't need them. Also sounds very good over the chords, you know? So a little bit of housekeeping, if you don't mind. First of
Sure.
all, we've got a lot of people tuned in live from all over the place, and
Yeah.
we'd like to shout out to them. You have
Okay.
fans right now tuned in to
Whoa.
you here live
Wow.
from Queensland, Australia,
Hey.
Dallas, Texas, Isle of Man in the UK,
Wow.
Belgrade, Serbia, Phoenix, Madison, Wisconsin, New Jersey, Dubuque, Iowa. I think I pronounced it.
Dubuque.
Dubuque. I always mess. I'm always good for a couple of. Norway, Sweden, Chester, Pennsylvania,
Whoa.
Delft, Netherlands. If you haven't chimed in yet from wherever you're tuned in from,
Wow.
please do so that we can say hey to you. Pretty
Hey.
crazy, right?
It's pretty
That's
crazy.
a lot of different time zones and
yeah.
continents, right? Also, if you would, if you dig Adam, if you dig what we're doing here, you see that little thumbs up underneath the video. Please show your love. A little thumbs up would be very, very much appreciated. And also, we're going to carve out ample time to answer any questions you might have. So if you post them in that little chat thread there, we'll gather them and fire them off to Adam, and he's always got the perfect answer. You really do. It's crazy, man.
Thanks.
Let's do inflect. Want to do that?
Yeah, can I just say something?
Please.
First, I just want to pick up on something that you said earlier about singer-songwriters, want to borrow from jazz. A thing that I found a lot in my private lessons is that I meet a lot of people who are at this intersection. A good number of my students are young people who are either in jazz, a jazz program at a university right now, or have recently finished one, and they've had their head stuffed full of, beautiful, heady jazz stuff, and they're like, "Man, I just want to play some simple songs with my friends," and or hey, I learned all this jazz, but the gigs that I'm actually getting called for are singer-songwriter gigs, and I don't know what to do. This is the wrong material to
Right.
play on those gigs. That's about half of my students. And the other half of my students are people like you mentioned who are singer-songwriters who own a capo, maybe even two capos, and they play a lot of songs in open keys like C and G and D and A. And they're like, "Man, I want to get some more sophistication. Can you show me some of that jazz stuff?" And, I could cut out the middleman and just introduce them all to each other, and they could work together, but and I'd be out of business as a teacher, I guess. But it's that intersection that really was one of the things that inspired me to want to do this kind of folk jazz kind of course, because I think a lot of people right now are either in that intersection or very close to it. They're either coming from folk and wanting to get more sophisticated, or coming from jazz and just wanting to get back to roots music, American roots music. So I think it's as you said, it's very kind of what's happening now. So I just
Definitely.
yeah.
Well, that's a great point. Also, and you and I have talked about this at great length. We just published our last special edition of Riff.
Yeah.
Was, which you're in, by the way. 50 gifted singer-songwriters you should know. And it's not a best of, it's not the top 50. It's like just a start. Like here's 50 singer-songwriters you should know. And you actually helped us select many of them because you're so well connected in that space. And we talk about there is a renaissance of singer-songwriters going on. And when you look at the history of, back what was happening in the 50s and then in the 60s, and then, okay, maybe it kind of dived down into disco like with everything else, but, singer-songwriter music, somebody that can get up there with just their guitar, their piano, or just an accompanist, is coming back really, really strong. And there's so many talented artists out there. And if you listen carefully to the progressions, the chord voicings, the rhythms, There's a lot of folk jazz.
Yeah.
What you're calling folk jazz
Yeah.
is very much happening. And so this course, it's not a problem, but I call it the problem with your stuff is it's genre defined. There's no
Right.
way, and unfortunately, we have to find categories to help people find stuff. So with you, we just put it all over the place, because is it for singer-songwriters? Absolutely. Rock, absolutely. Blues, absolutely. Jazz, absolutely. So I'm saying, and I'm saying this sincerely. I'll get to the gratuitous advertising towards the end, but Adam's stuff is almost like must-have reference and lesson material for any guitarist's library, because I don't care what you play, what style you play. This is what's happening today. You have to understand these principles and be able to apply it in your own music, whatever you're playing.
Yeah. I want to bounce.
Just keep
I've had a
going,
lot of
man.
coffee.
We're not going anyplace.
Okay. I'm just thinking like how, again, and it's something I haven't really thought of, but if I think about the kind of musical universe of people that you just, people I've played with, they're all open in that way. Like you mentioned, I played on a Michelle Indegio cello record.
Yes.
The song that I played on that record is "Private Dancer," which people might know if you're our age. You might know that Tina Turner recorded it in the 80s, but it's actually a song written by Mark Knopfler. So
I didn't know that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that I remember when that Tina Turner record was out, and I didn't know until Michelle did a cover of it. So you might not think of like Mark Knopfler, who probably everybody knows is the front man for Dire Straits, as writing something that would be, an R&B, wind up on R&B records.
Right.
But so there's that. And then, when I was playing with Nora Jones, we would in the same set do a Duke Ellington song and a Hank Williams song. And there was no lines there. And Tracy Chapman, who I played with, everybody thinks of her as a folk singer, I think, but the big hit that I played on is a blues song, So the whole idea that like all these things. Oh, and I played with Alan Toussaint. You mentioned
right.
the song that I played with him on was a cover of a Paul Simon song. So this is just what it's a space that I'm comfortable in, and I've been lucky to be, allied with people. And get to work with people who are similarly just open to, why does there have to be a dividing line between one or the other?
Exactly, and I think in many ways there's not just a renaissance of the singer-songwriter, but maybe a renaissance in original music and the music that people play.
Yeah, that's true.
Largely, like my theory is, okay, so you don't sell a lot of records anymore. There aren't a lot of labels. There's not a lot of producers in there telling you what to record. And musicians and artists have a tremendous amount of freedom to kind of do their thing.
Yes, they do.
I think that's fueling this, I guess, blurring of the line, of the genre lines. And I think that's a very good thing. Would you do inflect? Can we do that? Do the rhythm part first. Inflection, sorry.
Okay, I'll play some rhythm.
And then we'll solo
Let's
over it a little.
So I think in this chord, it's just a simple little arpeggio. I'll play some simple arpeggio ideas as I did in the course, and just show how you could play through these changes using fingerstyle arpeggios.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
Did you do a solo over this as well?
Yeah.
Can we do that?
I'll see if I can. Sure.
Do your best, Adam.
Okay. Fire away, Tommy. Hit me with your best shot.
Sweet, man.
Oh, thanks.
You know, you've only played a little bit, but
Yeah.
it's very clear to me, and I think based on the comments I'm seeing in the chat, why your phone never stops ringing, okay? I mean, you're the guy everybody wants in the band. You're the guy everybody wants to co-write with. And, you know, your educational stuff gives us, I think, you know, the opportunity to kind of dig into that particular approach. We got plenty of stuff with blazing licks and fancy jazz chords and all that, but you know, this is stuff you could take out today,
Right.
and you go to the gig, write a song, write your own songs, and that's why we just love collaborating with you. You know, another guy out of New York. You live on the West Coast now, but you were a New York guy. Jason Lachlan. Jason, I don't know if you're still chimed in, but he chimed in earlier and said, hey. He was
Jason.
in here recently. He's another incredible guitar player and great educator who plays a lot of different styles. He kind of got into a country bag with us here because he's a phenomenal country player. But, you know, he plays jazz, he plays blues, he plays surf, he plays, you know, out of New York. And when he was here, he was talking about how the scene today is, you know, if you're gonna be a guitarist today, kind of a working, recording, performing guitarist, you don't stick to one genre. All, you know, the lines are blurred. There are no lines. So anyway, Jason is chimed in.
Hey, Jason.
So he says, hey guys, sounds great. Adam. He's a great cat. Great cat. Thank you
Jason
for
is
chiming
great.
in,
Yeah.
Jason. We've got more shout outs for you. Princeton, Jupiter, Florida, Boston, Georgia, Morro Bay, Sri Lanka, London, Ottawa, Chile, Guatemala, Virginia, Alberta, Canada,
Whoa.
Ohio, Rome, Italy. The folk jazz revolution is sparking up in a big way today.
Wow,
man.
it's a worldwide phenomenon.
Isn't that crazy? It's just nuts. These are your fans, man.
Wow,
You know?
Sri Lanka. Hello, Sri Lanka.
I know.
Wow.
I've always wanted to go there, man, myself. Guys, thank you for chiming in. I see you're starting to ask some questions, and hit that thumbs up button. Show your love, please. All right, let's do one more tune from Trading Solos Folk Jazz.
Sure.
How about Gown?
Yeah, Gown and Gentry. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Do a rhythm part, and then we'll do a solo part.
Sure.
Before you do the solo,
Yeah.
guess who else has chimed in? Andy Timmons.
Oh, whoa. Hey, Andy.
He's amazing
Oh,
too.
he's the
He's
greatest.
another guy that, a lot of people might know him as this, rock maestro, amazing player. And then when he was in here in the his last session, he showed us some Brazilian music that he had recorded or played with in South America. Forgive me, Andy, if it's not Brazilian. It could have been, but it's like, what? So he's another great example of somebody that, doesn't really, he knows what to play, and he can play anything, and he plays it, at the right time. There are no lines there. It's not pigeonholing. Andy's got that guitar experience site. He teaches from his own website. I subscribe to it. It's incredible. He breaks down all of his tunes. And I should also mention that you have a killer Patreon site. So check out Adam's Patreon site. Check out, you just now have Right Brain Guitar, which is a brand new channel. We're just announcing channels this week and through the whole month of August. Adam Levy Patreon, check it out. It's a pretty big thing, it's great. Right Brain Guitar channel here on TrueFire. And go
Right
check
Brain,
out Andy Timmons' stuff.
WRITE. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure people can find it. It's
W-
WRITE, Right Brain.
Right Brain Guitar.
Because you're writing.
Yep. And Jason Lachlan also just launched an incredible channel.
Oh,
so,
I want to.
there's this great.
I want to check that out.
Musicians, artists who are also passionate about education. There's this whole new kind of trend. It's not a trend. I mean, it's just the evolution of the art and science of education, right? Are doing things like this that allow, players to connect with them on a more, say, personal and intimate level, get exclusive, insight and lessons. And I think guys like yourself, guys like Jason, guys like Andy are really leading the charge on what the future will look like, 5 and 10 years from now. I think it'll be unheard of for an artist who also teaches not to have these different platforms,
Right.
It's just great stuff. I applaud you, Jason, Andy, and all the other TrueFire artists that are doing things like that, because I know it takes a little time, and I know it's a slow ramp, but it's so worth it, and will probably be, a big part of what you do, and in the years to come.
Absolutely.
All right, a few questions.
Yeah. Fire away.
So of course we have some Nora Jones questions.
Oh,
you
boy,
probably get
okay.
that all the time. From Lee Candiotti, Adam, did you play a part in Nora's arrangement of Hank Williams' Cold Cold Heart?
Well, I played the guitar. Yeah. So I played the guitar part. And let me see. I've got some effects on that I'm going to turn off because I think they'll be distracting more than anything. We wanted to have the song have kind of a slow build, and we recorded it without a drummer. So I wanted to play kind of a percussive thing on the guitar. Which to me sounded a little bit like, maybe like a conga part, not in traditional, Afro-Cuban music, but how it might be used in a jazz context. And so I started out with that in the early part of the song before I opened up and started playing stuff that sounded more like a guitar. And I can't remember, I mean, that idea, guitar players have been doing that since the 50s. I've heard Jim Hall do stuff like that, and Barney Kessel. But I played a part in it literally in that I played that guitar part, but I can't remember specifically if Nora asked me to do a percussive thing or if I just kind of fell into it because it seemed like, when you only have a 3-piece band,
Right.
Everybody's got to kind of do multiple things so that the arrangements don't all sound the same.
Right. Well, so the answer is yes. Though.
Answer is yes.
Absolutely.
Next question.
From Francisco Monsalve, I hope I pronounced that correctly.
What a name. Beautiful.
Should we play to backing tracks to help improve? In other words, when you practice, should you put on a jam track or a backing track and play along with it?
Yes and no. Yes, they're helpful. Of course, when I was coming up, the only backing tracks that you could get were these LPs that were made by Jamie Aebersold. And
Music -1 stuff?
yeah. So, of course, if you the best thing that you could possibly do is play with real people. But if you live somewhere where there doesn't seem to be a big community, or if you're just shy and maybe a little bit nervous about playing with other people, or if you just feel you're not ready yet and you still need to use the training wheels, backing tracks can be helpful. But I would say there's two other things that you can use, and it's not an either or. I would go to all three of these things. So backing tracks, okay. Make your own backing tracks. That's the thing I think that people forget to do. But you can either do that just simply by turning on your phone and recording yourself playing some rhythm, or if you've got a looper and you're interested in layering things, you could create something to jam along with where you're playing kind of like a percussive part like I just did for Nora, and then some chords and maybe something else. Get active in creating rhythm parts, because remember, we're not just going to be soloing the whole time we're playing music. A lot of what we need to do is rhythm. So in your practice time, don't try to go straight to how can I start soloing? Oh, I'll start soloing, I'll get some backing tracks, now I can solo. Like, be active in creating rhythm parts. That's really important. And I would also encourage you to just play along with records. Try to find records, and I don't mean play the guitar part. Try to find records that maybe don't even have guitar on them. And then see if you can add something. If the music, I heard Julian Lage say this at a master class. It's very one way or the other. You're either making the music better by what you're playing, or you're making it worse. So see what you can do to make it better. So backing tracks, yes, but also in conjunction with play along with real records. You can learn so much from what's on records and create your own jam tracks.
That's great. Great answer, man. I told you guys, he always has the perfect answer. Okay, this question is from Andy Timmons.
Oh, no.
He says, can we make a duets record, Adam?
Yes. You heard it here first. Andy, I would love to
Wouldn't
make
that
a
be
duets
incredible?
record with you. I would love that.
Okay, and we would love, once you do that, or before you do that, to have you both come in here. We've done that. We did Frank Vignola and Julian Lage together doing duets. We did Tommy Emmanuel and John Knowles doing a duets, course. So, Adam, part of the deal is, Adam says yes, but part of the deal is you both have to come here and we do a duets course. Deal?
Okay, that's a deal.
Okay, cool. Let's see. From Pickenstone, what does Adam hear in his head when he solos and when he composes? What's going on up there, man?
Well, let's see. When I'm composing and when I'm improvising, often it's not a hearing thing. There is this idea, because people talk about this, that like you want to hear it in your head before you play it. In that just little micro moment before it gets to your fingers, you want to have a sense of the whole idea and then send it to your fingers, and your fingers do it, and it all just happens. Sometimes that happens, but on a good day, it goes straight there. So I don't get to, it's not like I'm in on it before you get to hear it. It's a surprise to me as well. If I'm just really reacting and really being in the moment, it's as fresh to my ears as it is to your ears.
Very cool.
A lot of times when I'm improvising, if I can't find that thing, if I can't connect to that pure source, I have, just little kind of puzzles or games I can play with myself that help get me there. I might think, as you mentioned, I might think about trying to see what I can do within one octave, or I might try to sound like my favorite vocalist rather than like my favorite guitarist. Or, I mean, we could spend a whole hour. I could tell you all my weird little improv games that help me connect to something. Because that's the thing, you have to connect to something. And over the years, I've learned little tricks that help get me out of my thinky. I don't want to be in my thinky head. As soon as I start thinking like, oh, it's E major, so I should play some E major scales, and here's one that I know, it's over.
Yeah.
I should just put the guitar down
Right.
and take a walk around the block.
Right.
That's not where it comes from. So I've found little kind of tricks to kind of distract me, like, oh, look over here at this shiny thing while your fingers are actually doing the real thing.
Interesting.
So when I'm improvising, that's what's happening. When I'm composing, a lot of the composing a lot of the tunes that I've written, if we're talking about instrumental music, not songs, because that's actually a whole other headspace, come from either taking a walk and being inspired by just the rhythm of walking, or the rhythm of something I might hear on the street, or, stuff that's in the air. I always try to start from an empty place and listen to what's in the air. Sometimes I write pieces because I'm working on a technical thing, and maybe in the process of working my way around the fretboard to try and find a technical thing, I might accidentally, play something that intrigues me, and I say, okay, hold on, technique, I can come back to this tomorrow. This is the spark of something, and how can I build on it and unravel it? And again, you learn some ways to do that by repeating things, or asking questions and hoping that the music answers. It's a little bit woo-woo, but that's how it is for me. I'm sure you could also go to music
That's
school
great,
and
man.
learn some very specific technical ways to compose.
we
It's not how I
hear
do it.
a lot from a lot of the jazz artists that come in here that answer a similar question, which is, study, practice, study, all your chords, arpeggios, and then forget it when you're playing or recording. Just put it out of your mind,
It's really true. I've had some of my most, even though I can be OCD and, my tendency would be to wake up early, practice hard even before the sun comes up. But so I've had many memorably great gigs that have happened when I've, just gotten off a 12-hour flight to Japan, or coming home from Japan or whatever, and I haven't really had a good night's sleep in days, and I'm just completely, unable to be OCD. I don't even have the capacity to be OCD if I want to be.
Yeah.
And then I surprise myself because all that thinky stuff is just not there. I don't have it. And in that place of just, playing by survival, just, throw yourself into the deep end and trust that something will be there. So lots of great gigs have come that way for me. Or sometimes I'll take a nap and wake up and it's like, oh man, I've got to be at the gig like now. So I'm kind of just, scrambling. I don't recommend that, by the way. Set an alarm, show up early, be responsible. But sometimes in that headspace, good for me anyway, good things can happen because it short circuits my natural OCD-ness. I know I come across as a very laid-back person, but believe me, I overthink stuff as much as anyone.
Great answer, man. Thanks. More shout outs from Austria, more from Australia,
Wie geht's?
Brazil, Uruguay, San
Wow.
Francisco, Atlanta, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Poland, Utah, and the Maldives.
The Maldives. Where are the Maldives?
These are all your I'm not sure.
Okay.
Let us know in the chat, and we'll report back to everybody.
Cool.
But it sounds very cool
Yeah.
to me. All right, so a little more housekeeping. You'll
Yes.
notice There's a link both under the video and in the chat. Zach put together Levy Live, all one word, good for 25% off. It's kind of a limited time thing. You can pre-order the upcoming courses, which would be great. But I would highly recommend investing, taking advantage of this discount and getting as much of everything in Adam's library as possible, whatever style you play.
Yeah.
So you'll see that promo code in there. You'll see links to his library, links to the pre-orders, and keep those thumbs up coming. We appreciate all of you that have done so thus far. It's a great way to show your love and share your love for what we're doing here together with Adam Levy.
Yeah.
All right, man. Listen. We have to talk about pocket rhythm.
Okay, yeah.
Now, what the heck is pocket rhythm?
Pocket rhythm, again, that comes from not wanting to be too style specific. Rhythm guitar playing is a big, important job that all guitar players need to understand how to do. If you're a jazz guitar player, you're still going to wind up playing other kinds of gigs, just as we've been talking about throughout this chat. All of us now play all kinds of gigs. I can't be, and I don't expect that anybody else has time to be like a killer authentic reggae player and a killer jazz comping, hey, let's play bebop with Frank Vignola, and also, hey, let's join a rock band and really like play rock. I have utmost respect for people who do just like one thing and do it better than anybody else can do it. That's not what my musical life looks like. I get to do a lot of things and it's great. I love it. I listen to a lot of things. I get to do a lot of things professionally. So you ask, what is pocket rhythm? I wanted to take 5 different kinds of grooves and show how you could approach them on the guitar, not from a total purist way. Like one of the tunes is kind of based on a Stax, Booker T and the MGs thing, and there's some moves in it that are very much like what Steve Cropper might do. He's a great guitar player in that tradition. But I throw a few twists in it as well. The point isn't to be like 100% authentic and wear period correct clothes and get the guitar from the era and try and pretend like, hey, it's 1960 whatever.
Right.
But like here we are in this day and age, knowing what we know, having heard what we've heard.
Right.
How can we get in the groove and really like lock in with a rhythm section, but in this same kind of open way? So pocket rhythm addresses 5 different kinds of grooves, 5 different kinds of tunes. There's bass and drum tracks, and some of the tracks I recorded also, I put an acoustic rhythm guitar on that you can play along with as well. And just, tried to show some approaches to rhythm guitar that anybody could learn and then transfer into other styles that you're working on.
Let's do
make
one.
sense?
Yeah, pick one.
I'm not as eloquent as you are.
Are you kidding? You're 10 times more eloquent than I am.
Maybe we could play The Feels.
Okay, cool. You got that, Tommy?
So this is kind of, inspired by like the band, Americana, roots rock. Okay.
vibe,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And yes, footnotes to some of the classic stylings of guys like Cropper and others.
Yeah.
But I mean, that would play today anywhere on
Yeah.
any gig.
Yeah.
Right?
Check out Dawes,
Right.
Check out, the way Taylor Goldsmith plays guitar in that band. He's the front man, he's the singer and guitar player. And, that's very today music. It's also very classic.
Absolutely. I love that. Factoid on the Maldives.
Where is it?
The Maldives is a tropical nation in the Indian Ocean composed of 26 ring-shaped atolls, which are made up of more than 1,000 coral islands.
I want to go there.
Yeah. Whoever's chimed in from there, call the local club, call the local concert venue, and have them shout out to Adam and get him over there.
Get me and Andy Timmons over there.
Oh, even better.
We're ready.
There you go.
Yeah.
Let's do. I like the Mender from this course too.
Yeah.
Could you talk about that and then play it?
Yeah. So that's playing ballads is a thing that we all get to do and maybe don't work on enough because, as you said, there's this tendency towards shred. So I wanted to have a tune that was very much about being settled. It's got a 12/8 feeling. It's kind of an Al Green kind of style, classic soul ballad. It's just, it's a feel that I wanted people to have a chance to work on. So that's what this track is about.
Cool. Tommy?
Just classic.
Beautiful, man.
Yeah. It's harder. It's harder than it looks. It seems like just simple moves, but to really lock in with what the bass player and drummer are doing
in the pocket.
Oh man.
Which is this is Take 5 pocket rhythms. And we get asked all the time, how do I lock in with the pocket? What is the pocket? This is a great answer to that question, and 5 incredible tracks that really do span a lot of different vibes.
Yeah.
By the way, Andy says, let's go to the Maldives. So
yes.
He's on board. Ali says she'll roadie.
Awesome.
Okay. And I am volunteering myself, Tommy and Jeff Sheets, our director of education, to lead all the fishing trips during the day.
Great.
Okay. There we go.
Wow.
A lot of folks on here as well want to come. Some need the tickets to be paid for them, but
do we bring parkas? Do we bring swim trunks?
I don't know, but hopefully,
how do we pack?
Hopefully, this cat from the Maldives will take care of all of that for us.
Wow,
okay,
the Maldives.
Man, we ran over. Not a problem.
Whoa,
people are still chimed in and digging it, but let's talk about gear. Talk about your guitar and the pedals that you might bring to the gig and your back line and all that good stuff. Folks love to learn all about that.
Of course. Well, okay, I'll start with the guitar. I always forget that this is either a 63 or a 64 ES335. It's a really versatile guitar. Um, if you get into different styles, there's, almost nothing that you can't do with a 335. Um, a Telecaster could also be described that way. You could play almost any kind of electric music on this kind of guitar or a Telecaster kind of guitar, but this is my guitar. This is my voice.
And is that your go-to for pretty much everything that you do?
For pretty much everything, almost to the point where I've tried to shake it off a couple of times. I went to a recording session with a band that I play with regularly, and I brought a different guitar, and they just looked at me like, "Go home, get your."
What are you doing?
Yeah, it's just funny because to me, actually, I sound about the same. The real truth to me is when I pick up different guitars, I wind up just sounding like me anyway.
Yeah.
But I understood that when we had this session that it was expected that this would be my sound.
Well, it's visually synonymous with you too, right?
Yeah, it's actually my second 335. I got a 335 when I was 13 in 1979.
Yeah.
It was my bar mitzvah present. It's same model as this, but a little different looking. It's dark. It almost looks black, but it's really actually more like the color of coffee.
Do you still have it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the guitar I played on Give Me One Reason with Tracy Chapman.
Really?
That's the guitar I played on Nora's first record. That's all, because that's all I had. I wasn't a collector or anything like that. But when I started to make a little bit of money with Nora in the early 2000s, I decided I wanted to get more of a classic 330. I grew up loving Larry Carlton.
Sure.
I grew up, I loved B.B. King. I wanted to get sort of a classic kind of. So this is, I spent some of my Nora Jones money on this guitar. And again, I don't remember if it's 63 or 64, but this has been my number one guitar for the last 15 years. I put flat wound strings on it. These are Tomastic flat wounds.
What gauge?
These are 11 on the top, and I forget what the bottom is. It might be 49, I think. Okay. And I like flat ones just because they make less string noise. There's less of this extra crackle that some people love, and I don't. Yeah. So it just gets to, this is what the note is. There's no funny business. You play a note, it is what it is. You move your hand, you don't get a bunch of... I use, on any given season, I'll say a different answer. But at the moment, I'm just using the most, quotidian kind of pick that you could get. This is a Fender heavy, nothing fancy. Sounds great. I've got a jar full of them. If you lose them, you can get more. I generally like stuff like that. If I lose this, I can't just get another one. But stuff like picks and strings and stuff, I try not to be too precious. I mean, Tomastic strings are expensive or whatever, but I'm happy to, if I go to a session and there's somebody, has a guitar and that guitar sounds better for what we're trying to do, I don't care what strings are on it. If it sounds good, it is good. Pedals wise, a range of boutique-y things to some lo-fi things. On my pedal board in order, there's just there's a power supply and there's 6 noisemakers. Well, one noisemaker is a tuner. I guess that's not really a noisemaker. It's just a TC Electronic Polytune, the sort of smallish one because it takes up less room. I've got a compressor made by Exotic called SP compressor. I like it because it's just the way I use it is subtle. I could turn it on and you wouldn't go, oh, wow, it sounds compressed. It just sounds better. I try to find whatever makes the guitar sound better. And if it doesn't make the guitar sound better, I take it off my pedal board. Okay. So most of these are, so here's without compression. Here's with. Doesn't sound that different, but it feels a little different as I play it. Next pedal also does very little. It does a lot, but I use it in a modest way. It's an Exotic RC booster. It's basically a preamp. Here's without. Here's with. It focuses it. The downside of a 335 with flat wound strings is it can sometimes be a little bit dark. And rather than, having a bunch of different guitars to do different things, if I would just want to play this guitar all the time, having the RC booster or some other kind of preamp lets me control the bass frequencies, control the treble frequencies, add a little more gain if I want to. So that's what I'm doing. It's a little gain, a tiny treble boost, a tiny bass cut. That's going to stick in a track way better than this guitar just straight into an amp. Similar, but a little woollier is I have a Boss OD3 overdrive. Here's without. Here's with. It's louder, of course, but as any experienced guitar player knows, when you're talking about overdrives, what sounds louder when you're by yourself, when the band is there and you've got a drummer with cymbals and a bass player and lots of stuff going on, that much of a boost in volume is not that big. So it might seem like, oh, gee, that's a pretty big boost. But when you're boosting and making it overdriven, that's not that big of a boost. So I use this when I'm going to take a solo. Instead of reaching over to my amp and just turning it up a little bit for the solo, that's what I use the Boss overdrive for.
More for a volume impact rather than a dirty sound impact?
Yeah, it's slightly dirty.
Yeah.
It's not a clean boost. There's other things that you might use as a clean boost, but I'm using it. The drive is on 0.
Okay.
It's the least dirt
Okay.
I can get. It's just
to cut through.
Yeah, let me give you a better example because I've been playing low end stuff, but let
Okay.
me just play where a lead guitar
Okay,
would
cool.
go. So this is clean. And if I combine the RC booster and the overdrive, then it starts to actually, if I need a little more wild sound, neither of those pedals by themselves is particularly wild. Together, I can start to get a little bit of feedback, a little bit of, Neil Young sound. It's not rock exactly, but it's in my universe that it's either one or the other or both.
Play that line with both then.
Okay, so here's clean. Here's RC boost. Here's just overdrive. Now here's both.
Got it. Nice.
And you can hear like the guitar. I'm playing quiet enough that it's not really going to feed back in here. But if I was on stage just a little hotter, this guitar can take off. And I'm in the middle position. If I do that on the bridge pickup, now to somebody else that might be like, that's your wild sound, but relative to the clean stuff that I'm mostly playing,
that is your wild sound.
and I would I wouldn't be sitting on a stool, and with my amp on 4 it would be a lot hotter. So the next thing is a tremolo, again very subtle. This is a JHS Tidewater half space. It really sounds ampy to me. Let me set it up a little bit better here. There we go. So that might be where I'd put it. If I get the compressor on there. It just sounds like amp tremolo. There's a lot of other pedals that do stuff that amps can't do. I want one that does what my amp does, because when I'm traveling, when I'm flying around playing in different venues with who knows what kind of amp, this basically gives me, all of the stuff on this board gives me what I could do at home with no pedal board. My main amp at home is a Brown 1962 Deluxe, Fender Deluxe non-reverb. It is a monster of an amp. It's sort of like if a Fender and a Marshall had a baby. It's that's what it's like. And so it's got great tremolo. It's got overdrive just just turning it up.
Yeah.
So a lot of this stuff just gives me the comfort of that amp, but I don't want to fly that amp all over the place
Got
because it's been through a lot already. And then the last thing on my board is a Jam Pedals Delay Llama analog delay. I think it's 600 milliseconds at the maximum. And stop me if you've heard this one before, but I use it at the minimal setting. I think I've said that with every pedal. It just gives a little bit. That's not 600 milliseconds. That's a mild setting. But this pedal sounds real to me. Too many delays don't quite. So, okay, here's everything on, and you'll see it's still not the craziest sound. But this is, if I turn on everything, this is my Vegas mode. So it's not that crazy, but that's all the sounds that I need. And I'm playing into a reissue Princeton reverb on volume 4, not using the reverb right now. I'm kind of not that into reverb. It can be a beautiful thing, but it can also be people forget that you can turn it off or turn it down. People
That's
just
true.
you just forget it's on. It's like, oh yeah, reverb, and like, but do you have to? Is it, the drummer doesn't have reverb, bass player doesn't have reverb.
Right.
Okay.
Well done, man. Thank you for taking the time to do this. I know we have a little bit of work yet to do, and you have a photo shoot today.
Oh man.
So our day is not done, but we really appreciate it. The folks online loved this. You'll be able to read all their comments. So please, thumbs up if you dug this thing. Take advantage of Levy Live for the big discount. It's just going to, I don't know if it's 24, 48 hours, something like that. Dig into Adam's existing library and stay tuned for these 2 new courses. I think you will not only not be disappointed, I think it'll really be a game changer for your rhythm playing, your soloing, your composition, your accompaniment, the whole bag. Adam, you're the best, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brad.
Would you do one more tune from Pocket Rhythm?
Sure.
Maybe that, I love that Mr. Wonder.
Sure.
And play us out. And
I'll do what
thank
I
you,
can.
everybody, for chiming in, supporting the cause here. We love you wherever you are chimed in from, and we'll see you next time.